Today, we're going to get into the psychology of a mind that's just always on, always working, always connecting, always questioning. We're talking about the deep mind.
So let me ask you this. Have you ever felt like your mind is both your absolute greatest strength and maybe your biggest burden? Like it's constantly running, analyzing, and questioning everything, even when you're just begging it to switch off for a little while?
Well, if that sounds even remotely familiar, you are definitely not alone. And it's not because something's wrong with you. It's because your brain might be hardwired to process reality in a fundamentally different way. So let's get into what's really going on here.
All right, first up, we've got to understand the basic wiring. Why does a complex brain feel like it just never, ever slows down?
At the heart of all this is a concept some psychologists call hyperconnectivity. Basically, it's this tendency for your brain to automatically connect everything. So, for instance, when someone else sees a new project, they see a task. You see the task plus 10 potential pitfalls, 3 ways it could be done way better, and exactly how it's going to impact next year's budget. Your brain just naturally builds this entire web of connections that other people might totally miss.
Now, what I love about this slide is how it reframes that internal experience, that feeling that your mind just won't shut off. Psychologically, that's just your brain's default setting, continuous processing. What you might label as anxiety could actually be cognitive depth, and that endless loop of thoughts, research just calls that stronger internal thinking activity. See? It's not a flaw, it's a feature of your mind's operating system.
Okay, so that's what's happening on the inside. But how does all this constant mental activity actually show up in the real world? Let's look at some of the common habits of a deep thinker.
Ever catch yourself talking a problem out loud? It might feel a little weird, but it's actually an incredibly efficient way to take that tangled mess of thoughts in your head and give it some structure. Psychologically, it's a powerful tool called verbal reasoning. You're turning abstract thoughts into concrete words, which helps you organize them and find solutions way faster.
And what about overthinking? We're always told it's a bad thing, right? But there's a huge difference between just anxious looping and what psychologists call productive cognitive reflection. A deep mind naturally explores every single angle of a situation. It's not always out of fear, but often out of a desire to find the absolute best path forward before you act.
Now, this one might seem like a total contradiction. How can you have a messy physical desk, but a perfectly organized system of digital files? Well, it's a sign of selective organization. A deep mind instinctively prioritizes its energy. It focuses on organizing the tools that directly impact the end goal. So what looks like chaos to someone else is actually a form of mental efficiency. Pretty cool, huh?
Okay, so this intense inner world obviously has a big impact on how we connect with other people. Let's explore why socializing can feel so, different for a deep mind.
This quote just hits the nail on the head, doesn't it? It really gets to the heart of why solitude is so important. For a deep mind, being alone isn't about avoiding people. It's about creating the mental runway needed for big ideas to connect and take off. A long walk by yourself isn't being antisocial. It's a critical problem-solving session.
Small talk. If you find it mentally painful, this is exactly why. A deep mind is like a hungry mind. It's constantly seeking stimulation, depth, meaning, new concepts. Surface-level chit-chat just doesn't provide that nutrition, so it can feel more draining than it is restorative. You can be in a room full of people and still feel completely, cognitively alone.
So what this all boils down to is a higher standard for connection. It's not about avoiding people. It's about avoiding shallow relationships that just feel empty. Because your inner world is already so rich and stimulating, you tend to rely more on your own internal validation than on what everyone else thinks. This naturally leads you to seek out fewer but far more meaningful connections.
So, with a brain that's always on, how do you manage it all? How do you keep from burning out? Let's get into some practical, psychology-backed habits that can help dial down that mental noise.
This is a fantastic, simple rule for what sleep psychologists call cognitive offloading, which is just a fancy way of saying you're helping your brain unload the day's mental baggage before you try to sleep. It gives your brain a really clear signal to power down. No heavy food means your body can rest. Stopping work ends that problem-solving loop. And no screens means you're not blasting your brain with blue light, which messes with your natural sleep hormones.
We can also borrow some tiny but incredibly powerful Japanese habits. Kaizen, or focusing on just 1% daily improvement, keeps your brain engaged without feeling overwhelmed. Forest bathing, or just spending time in nature, helps switch on your body's rest and digest system to calm you down. And Danshari is about more than just tidying up. Studies actually show that decluttering your physical space reduces stress hormones and gives your brain more room to breathe.
And here's another powerful mind-body connection for you. The Okinawan habit of eating until you're about 80% full is a simple way to practice what psychologists call interoceptive awareness, which is basically the skill of actually listening to your body's signals. It prevents physical overload, and let's be honest, a mind always works better when the body isn't struggling.
All right, for our final section, let's bring this all home. It's time to reframe the challenges that come with this kind of cognitive style, not as flaws, but as the other side of your greatest strengths.
This is so important to grasp. The very things that cause you the most difficulty, the perfectionism, the self-criticism, that feeling of being misunderstood, they're often the flip side of your greatest abilities. They all come from the exact same source, a mind that sees, processes, and feels things more deeply than most.
So let's just flip the script on this. That nagging perfectionism, it doesn't come from arrogance. It comes from having real clarity. You can vividly imagine the ideal outcome. That intense self-criticism, that's a sign of high self-awareness, what psychologists call metacognition, or thinking about your own thinking. And that feeling of being misunderstood, it's often because your ideas are simply more complex and layered than a quick conversation can handle.
I really want you to let that sink in. Your struggles are not evidence that something is wrong with you. They are the price of admission for having a mind that experiences the world with such incredible richness and intensity.
At the end of the day, having a deep mind isn't just about being good at solving complex problems. It's a whole different way of experiencing reality. It sharpens your thinking, of course, but it also dials up your awareness, your emotional sensitivity, and your sense of personal responsibility for the world around you.
So, understanding the unique way your mind is wired, that's the critical first step. The real question is, now that you know how this powerful tool works, what are you going to choose to build with it?